Friday, and thank you so much for watching. This is Now. We start with a traffic alert for Oahu drivers. The Honolulu-bound lanes of the Likelike Highway at the Wilson Tunnel have been shut down for emergency repairs. Now, the Transportation Department says during a routine inspection, they found ceiling rods. Some of them in the tunnel were damaged.
We shut it down out of an abundance of caution. We found in our normal inspections 10 rods that hold up the concrete plenum above the tunnel to be broken and fractured. There's about 350 rods throughout the tunnel that support that tunnel area, but 10 rods are of concern. We shut it down to ensure that we don't have any safety issues at this time.
Now, Sniffen said another 15 damaged rods were found today, so 25 rods total will have to be replaced before the tunnel is reopened. He says the tunnel will be completely shut down over the weekend, but before the Monday commute, he will open up one lane through the tunnel, and that lane will remain open until repairs are completed. Sniffen says they eventually plan to install another 100 rods to the tunnel at a later date to add support. A candlelight vigil will be held tonight in Kaka'ako for Ikaika Stone. He was killed last month, allegedly by his former co-worker, 26-year-old Fanaika Mateaki. Stone's family is encouraging anyone impacted by gun violence to join them. It'll be held at Ohe Street, where he was shot to death, near Kaka'ako Waterfront Park at 5 p.m. Meanwhile, Mateaki pleaded not guilty yesterday. He's charged with murder and other crimes. His younger brother, 19-year-old Paea Mateaki, is charged with attempted murder and also pleaded not guilty. He allegedly tried to shoot another man but failed. Both brothers were ordered to stand trial on January 8th. Records reveal a Honolulu police officer arrested for driving under the influence and crashing into a utility pole 7 years ago recently slammed his subsidized vehicle into the back of a motorcyclist, seriously injuring the rider. A judge found Vasai Isala Jr. not guilty of the 2016 DUI and inattention to driving charges. Meanwhile, the victim in this latest crash tells HNN Investigates he spent the last month and a half trying to get answers about what happened the night he was hit. But he says he's being stonewalled by police. Allison Blair has the story.
After receiving several tips from law enforcement sources about the case, we asked HPD if the department was investigating claims Vasai Isala Jr., who's been on the force 18 years, may have been driving under the influence when he crashed into a motorcyclist September 22nd. HPD didn't confirm or deny that information. However, a spokesperson did tell us an administrative investigation is underway into the responding officer's handling of the incident.
Friday, September 22nd at 9:10 p.m. Honolulu police responded to the scene of this crash on Kamehameha Highway at Salt Lake Boulevard. HPD records revealed a subsidized police vehicle driven by off-duty Corporal Vasai Isala Jr. slammed into the back of a motorcyclist at a stoplight. These are photos of the 62-year-old's clothing after he was sent flying across the asphalt.
I think I was blacked out for a while.
Randy Segario was rushed to Tripler Army Medical Center, suffering from a serious neck injury and road rash down the left side of his body.
I still have shoulder and neck issues, nausea and headaches daily.
And you said that you ended up having a stroke a week later?
Yes.
Do you think that it had anything to do with the crash you were in the week earlier?
Yes, I do.
He says those injuries have prevented him from returning to his job in aircraft operations production. He says his wife has also had to leave work so she can care for him. Segario told us he can't remember much about what happened at the scene after he was hit.
Did you talk to police the night of the accident?
Yes, in the ER at Tripler. I gave my statement at the hospital. I had to ask the officer to read it back to me because knowing that I'm still in shock.
For the past month and a half, the 62-year-old has repeatedly asked HPD for a copy of the crash report filed by officers that night. This is what he says the department gave him: the first 4 pages of what appears to be a 24-page report, along with a few more pages from what looked like 2 other reports. It wasn't until he got those papers he realized it was an off-duty officer who hit him.
Have you asked for the entire report?
Every time I called.
How many times has that been?
3 times after I initially went in, and their answer was the investigation is still open and it's classified.
He says the person he talked to told him the department was doing an internal investigation.
Did they give you a reason for why there was an internal investigation?
The person that hit me was driving a subsidized vehicle.
But that's not the story Honolulu police gave H&N Investigates. On October 18th, a spokesperson told us in an email the department opened an administrative investigation into the responding officer's handling of the incident. Sources told us just before the crash, Isala had attended a party. The partial report HPD provided Sigario shows Isala wasn't given a field sobriety test, and the box asking if officers suspected impairment was left blank. Meanwhile, Honolulu police confirm Corporal Isala remains on full duty.
Do you think HPD has been straight with you about the circumstances of all of this?
No. All I want is answers.
Over the past 3 weeks, H&N Investigates has asked Chief Logan multiple times to sit down with us and talk about this investigation. Our latest request was made 2 days ago, but the department repeatedly turned us down, saying the investigation into the responding officers is ongoing.
H&N Investigates will continue to track this case. On a side note, Sigario told us he's certain the reason he's alive today is because he was wearing a helmet along with other personal protective gear. Tonight, he's urging everyone who rides on 2 wheels to do the same. Allison Blair, Hawaii News Now.
Some graffiti in Kaka'ako has the owner of a gay club and his partner asking for protection. Robbie Baldwin of Scarlet Nightclub says he believes the message "Rob is dead" is a death threat against him or his partner Rob. It's on a door on Kauaiha'o Street near the Liquor Commission. Baldwin is suing the commission over alleged discrimination, and his partner is a witness in the case. They say the graffiti amounts to witness intimidation.
Given his, research and looking into all of the things they've been doing through the, government records, he's just aggravated them to a point where now they're lashing out and acting completely crazy. Yeah, it's pretty terrifying.
Baldwin has asked a judge for a temporary restraining order against the Liquor Commission. No decision on that yet. The Liquor Commission says there's no evidence that it's connected to the graffiti or that it references the plaintiffs, witnesses, or anyone in the case. The discrimination trial is scheduled for late next year. On Hawaii Island, a brush fire broke out this morning in the Pohakuloa training area. We're told less than 100 acres have been burned so far, but smoke may be visible to drivers on the Daniel K. Inouye Highway. No structures are currently threatened and no roads have been closed. We'll continue to monitor the latest. Meanwhile, DLNR officials say flames are no longer visible in the Mililani Mauka wildfire, but the damage is evident. Officials say native trees, including koa, ohia, and the native fern uluhe, were burned. HFD says on day 12 of the fire, it remains 90% contained, and the burn area is about 1,600 acres. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is overseeing more than 60 personnel dousing hotspots with ground and aerial crews. And 3 months after the Maui fires, 120 communities across the state have signed up for free fire risk assessments. The Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization works with state and federal agencies to certify fire-wise communities by helping them to prevent fires and come up with evacuation and mitigation plans. Before August 8th, only 19 Hawaii communities had gone through the Fire-Wise program. Now they have a waiting list.
One of our most active and model communities is Laniupoko, which is right on the edge of the burn scar. And so we are so proud of them for the action that they've taken ahead of time. I think that that era of complacency or having to be convinced is totally over.
To sign up to become a FireWise community, you can go to hawaiiwildfire.org. There's also a link on hawaiinewsnow.com. Maui's Department of Water Supply has issued a mandatory conservation order for Kihei, Wailea, and Makena. The county says South Maui's daily water demand of 13 million gallons is overwhelming its equipment, causing 2 well pumps to fail. Residents must also cut back on non-essential usage, such as watering lawns and washing cars. And same thing in upcountry Maui, where customers are required to stop non-essential water uses because demand is exceeding the supply by 20%. At Kula Hospital, which has 80 long-term care patients, leaders say the facility's 2 water tanks are running low. There's talk of drilling new wells, but that takes time. Trucks could also bring in water, but that's difficult and costly.
Unless there is a material amount of rain that occurs within the next 30 days, and/or unless there is a approximately 20% reduction in consumption in that region by early December, which is about 2 to 3 weeks from now, it is projected that there will be insufficient water to supply the Kula region.
And because of the wildfires and what we experienced and feeling that we need to conserve on our precious water, it feels even worse, I think, based upon what we went through with, the devastation of and impacts of what happened on August 8th and not having enough water to put out the fires that we needed to.
The county is providing more mobile water tanks while officials work on a long-term solution. Just in this morning, take a look at this video of a boat fire at the Alawai Harbor. Crews were called to the scene just after 3:30 this morning. They found a docked boat fully engulfed in flames. Firefighters were able to get it under control in about half an hour. No one had been on board at the time. An investigator was sent to the scene. We'll bring you any new details as we get them. Now a look back to the early days of the pandemic when businesses were closed and families were stuck at home. The city got $387 million in federal funding to help people make it through those tough times, but a city audit found flaws in the system. City Auditor Arushi Kumar re-examined the city's handling of federal money in 2 emergency funds and found several issues. The audit found 98% of small businesses that got aid failed to provide all the required documentation, and the city failed to follow federal guidance. The other fund for households closed prematurely, and 2,000 applicants were turned away. We tried to reach out to former Mayor Kirk Caldwell, but he was unavailable for comment. Honolulu's current mayor reminds everyone his predecessor faced a crisis like no other.
And to the credit of the prior administration, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. These monies that were flowing into the city from the federal government, from the Treasury, were unprecedented. And quite honestly, those rules were actually changing periodically. And I think, quite honestly, people weren't really quite sure what they could and couldn't do.
The audit prompted the city's current managing director to issue a long list of recommendations so the city does better the next time around. Federal authorities say someone is targeting elections officials in multiple states with letters laced with fentanyl. Bradley Blackburn has more.
The FBI has joined the investigation to find out who sent more than a dozen letters containing a suspicious powder to election workers. The letters were sent to offices in 5 states and were believed to have been mailed from somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Initial tests show some of the letters contain trace amounts of fentanyl, but further tests are being conducted.
Some people like to call fentanyl a drug, but it's actually poison. It'll kill you. It'll kill you very quickly, very easily.
Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger confirmed that one of the letters was addressed to an election office in Fulton County, the same county where former President Trump and several co-defendants face charges for trying to overturn the 2020 results. Trump has pleaded not guilty. Fulton County election officials have received numerous threats since the 2020 presidential election.
This is domestic terrorism, and it needs to be condemned by anyone that holds elected office and anyone that wants to hold elected office anywhere in America.
We have to start taking these threats seriously and push back on them.
Former Washington Secretary of State Kim Wyman says there need to be new laws carrying severe penalties for people trying to interfere with elections.
This should be mandated. When someone threatens our election system and is trying to undermine our way of life, we have to take a stand and hold them accountable.
Authorities still don't know the motive of the person or persons who sent the letters. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Thousands of Palestinians in Gaza are now fleeing south after the hospitals they were seeking shelter in came under attack. Willie James Inman has the latest.
A mass exodus in Gaza Friday as Palestinians headed south, away from fighting in the north. This man, injured and in a wheelchair, breaks down from exhaustion. He says this is not a life. Most of these Palestinians were already displaced, sheltering at hospitals, assuming they'd be safe. But overnight, Gaza's main hospital reported several strikes. The Hamas-run health ministry blames Israel. Israel blames militants, but added Hamas is using the hospital as cover, its main command center underneath. Hamas says the Palestinian death toll now exceeds 11,000.
The U.S. government has been pushing Israel for a pause in fighting to help Palestinians get to safety. The Israeli military said that Friday's pause was extended to 6 hours, with Palestinians given 4 hours on Saturday.
We need to maximize every effort to prevent Palestinian deaths and to advance the humanitarian assistance that's getting to them.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the White House is also focusing on the release of the hostages Hamas is holding. In Tel Aviv, Israelis hosted a Shabbat dinner with more than 200 empty seats.
Bringing the hostages back should be the first and foremost priority of the government, and it isn't.
Another group, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, says it's prepared to release a woman and boy it's holding. These are still images from a new video Hamas released of a woman and boy kidnapped from their kibbutz during the October 7th attacks. Willie James Inman, CBS News, Washington.
All right, back here at home, let's take a live look outside with our tower cam. This is looking out toward Aloha Tower and the airport there off in the distance. Beautiful day on this Aloha Friday. Lots of sunshine, blue skies, fluffy clouds. But Guy Hagi tells us there are going to be some strengthening winds and some showers coming this weekend. He's going to have your full forecast after a quick break.
weather's going to be very nice for the weekend. It's going to be a little bit windy, yes, and we will see a few more windward and mocha showers. But we're more concerned with what's going to happen starting on Monday, maybe even late Sunday, because these trade winds will start to pick up speed. Notice the streamlines start to change color. So upwards of 30 miles an hour. We're talking early Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday, and then they start back on moderate speeds on Thursday. So first alert, we're talking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, very strong winds. And another shot of rain coming Sunday night into Tuesday. Tuesday looks to be the wettest day, but the winds are going to be more the story, because winds this strong for this extended amount of time could break down trees, down limbs, affect traffic, maybe even get some spotty power outages. So until then, enjoy the weekend. It's going to be pretty nice. Veterans Day included. Lots of sunshine expected. But with the trade winds coming back, we'll see a return of those overnight and early morning showers for those windward sides.
Hawaii's Kaylee Shimizu continues to make national headlines after putting on a powerful performance on The Voice. The 17-year-old from Eva Beach belted out an incredible rendition of Aretha Franklin's Ain't No Way during this week's knockout rounds. Before the performance, Shimizu said she never felt ready to sing the song until now.
Both of the people that I was competing against were insanely talented. I was like a little bit nervous, but I had to remind myself to just be confident in my own voice and just give it my all. So that's what I did, and that was the first time I ever performed that song on stage. So that was a little more nerve-wracking as well. And yeah, it's an Aretha Franklin song, so it was a tough one.
She faced off against Mara Justine and Caleb Sasser, also from Team John Legend. But in the end, John chose Kaylee to keep on his team, calling her one of the most gifted vocalists he's ever heard. You can continue watching Shimizu's journey on The Voice on Monday and Tuesday nights on KHNL. Well, Taylor Swift is having quite the year. The Grammy nominations are out, and she's now the first person in Grammy's history with 7 nominations in the prestigious songwriting category. The anti-hero singer now ties Barbra Streisand for most all-time nominations by a female artist in the category. Speaking of anti-hero, it was nominated for Song of the Year, and her album Midnights was nominated for Grammy Album of the Year. Swift was also nominated in several other categories, including Record of the Year, Best Pop Solo Performance, and Best Pop Duo or Group Performance. We'll have more on the other Grammy nods in our later newscasts. And 4 iconic toys have made it into the National Toy Hall of Fame. This year's inductees are Cabbage Patch Kids, baseball cards, the Nerf ball, and the Fisher-Price Corn Popper. The Corn Popper was a special 4th inductee in honor of the Hall's 25th anniversary this year. It won by popular vote out of 5 forgotten finalists. You can see the National Toy Hall of Fame for yourself at the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. All right, time for some good news now as our nation honors our veterans and their service to our country. Elizabeth Holmes takes us to a roadside tribute called Flags for Heroes in Virginia.
On a small plot of land in Sandston, Virginia.
Oh, there's the rest of them.
Is a big showing of appreciation.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
140 American flags fly here on Williamsburg Road. It's an initiative by Sandston's Rotary Club called Flags for Heroes.
Colonel Jerry O'Malley.
Member Tracy Pendleton helps place names on the poles just underneath the stars and stripes.
It's a very humbling event when you start hearing some of the stories behind some of these folks. We've had the leader of the Bedford Boys. Bedford, Virginia, lost the highest per capita in World War II. And one of those gentlemen is sponsored in here. We've had a gentleman who was sunk by a German submarine and was picked up through a caravan, still alive.
Around 60 different names are on display. Many of them are those of former military members. One of them,
he was row 3,
is personal to Pendleton.
Here we are.
It's the name of his father.
He was in the Army during the Korean War. I still miss him, and this just reminds me how much I miss him.
The display has seen no shortage of support from community members, often garnering honks from passing drivers.
No one's even critical about the fact our lines aren't exactly straight either.
Though it is mainly military names here,
Carter Anderson, I'll put him here.
Pendleton says it doesn't have to be.
A hero is your own definition. A lot of them are just important people in somebody's life.
Pendleton says it shares a message about Sandston, one of service, sacrifice, and strength.
I get a little bit more story than these tags tell, but it's the benefit of doing the work.
In Henrico County, I'm Elizabeth Holmes, CBS 6 News.
And here at home, City and County of Honolulu offices will be closed today in observance of Veterans Day. First responders are available. The bus and the Skyline will operate on a state holiday schedule. You can find that information on their respective websites. Now, all satellite city halls and driver licensing centers will be closed, but parks, botanical gardens, and the zoo will remain open. And with tomorrow being Veterans Day, many restaurants and businesses are giving deals for vets over the weekend. So on Saturday, they can get a free donut at Dunkin', a free coffee and donut at Krispy Kreme, or a free breakfast at Wendy's. All of these deals require a government ID. Thanks for watching. This is Now. More news coming up first at 4.